The night my family divided Grandpa's $14 million estate, they used place cards. That was the first thing that told me they had been planning longer than they admitted. There were 11 chairs around my aunt's dining table, each with a folded card in front of it. On the inside of every card was the name of an asset: the lake house, the downtown building, the vineyard acreage, the investment account, the classic cars, the furniture, the jewelry, the family company. They had not written dollar amounts, but everyone knew the numbers. My Aunt Caroline had already placed her card beside the lake house. My father had the downtown building. My cousin Derek had the cars. My sister Olivia had the jewelry. My uncle Martin had the company. And my card was blank. Not empty, blank. There was a difference. An empty card could mean no decision had been made. A blank card meant someone had decided nothing belonged to me and wanted the table to see it. I stood in the doorway holding the lemon pie Grandpa used to request every birthday. No one moved to help. My father looked at the pie, then at me. "You are late." I checked the clock on the wall. It was 6:58. Dinner was at 7. "I'm early." Caroline smiled without warmth. Everyone else came at 6. No one told me 6. It was in the family chat. I looked around the table. What family chat? Silence. Derek laughed under his breath. Olivia looked away. There it was. Another group conversation without me. Not the first. Maybe not even the 10th. But this one had been used to divide a dead man's life before the official will reading. Grandpa had been buried 9 days earlier. 9 days. His coffee mug was probably still in the sink at the farmhouse. His boots were still beside the back door. The blanket I had placed over his legs during his last week was still folded across the chair near the window. And my family had printed place cards. "Sit down, Maya," my father said. I placed the pie on the sideboard. "Where?" He nodded toward the blank card. The chair was at the far corner near the kitchen door. When I was a child, that was where the cousins sat after the adults filled the real table. I was 34 years old. I sat anyway. Not because I accepted the insult, because the notary had not arrived yet, and because Grandpa had made me promise something 3 weeks before he died. Do not interrupt people when they are showing you who they are. Let them finish. So I let them finish. For the first 20 minutes, my family discussed Grandpa's estate as if he had left behind a warehouse full of prizes. Uncle Martin wanted the family company because he had given 30 years to it. He had worked there for 18, left twice, and borrowed money from it at least 4 times. Aunt Caroline wanted the lake house because she had created the family memories. She had visited twice in the last 5 years and complained both times about the weak internet. My father wanted the downtown commercial building because he had helped Dad buy it. He had been 17 when Grandpa bought it. His help had consisted of carrying paint cans. Derek wanted the classic cars because Grandpa had promised them to him when he was 12. Grandpa had also promised Derek he could become an astronaut if he ate his vegetables. Olivia wanted the jewelry collection because, in her words, Grandma would want it to stay with the women. Our grandmother had died 7 years earlier. She had left me one small silver locket in a handwritten note. Olivia had called it cheap. Now she wanted every remaining piece. No one mentioned the tenants living in the downtown building. No one mentioned the 42 employees at Bennett Packaging, Grandpa's company. No one mentioned the agricultural workers who managed the vineyard. No one mentioned taxes, debt, maintenance, or the scholarship foundation Grandpa had funded quietly for 15 years. They talked about what each asset could buy. Sell the building, clear the mortgage. Sell the vineyard, retire early. Sell the cars, invest in something modern. Sell the lake house before winter. Sell, 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 sell. The man who had spent 60 years building things had been dead 9 days, and his children were discussing demolition. I remained quiet. Olivia finally noticed. "You are not going to say anything?" "What would you like me to say?" She smiled. "You usually have an opinion." "I have several." "Then share." I looked at the blank card. "You seem to have completed the decisions without me." My father sighed. Maya, do not make this emotional. Grandpa had died with my hand wrapped around his. I had slept in a chair beside his bed for 6 nights. I had managed his medication schedule, met the hospice nurse, and called each relative when the doctor said the time was close. My father arrived 4 hours after Grandpa died because he had a golf event. And now he was telling me not to make the estate emotional. I'll try, I said. That answer irritated him. He preferred resistance he could punish. Calm made him uncertain. Uncle Martin leaned forward. Look, we all know you were close to Dad. Grandpa. What? You called him Dad. I called him Grandpa. Martin frowned. We all know you were close to him. You helped at the end. Everyone appreciates that. No one at the table said thank you. He continued. But helping during an illness does not create ownership. I did not say it did. Good. Caroline lifted her wine. This should be simple then. I looked at her. What should be simple? Accepting that the estate belongs to his children first. My father is his child. Exactly. She gestured toward my father's card. Your branch is represented. My branch. Not me. A branch. Like I was a leaf too far from the trunk to matter. Olivia tapped her finger beside the jewelry card. And Dad can decide what happens within our branch. I turned toward him. Did you decide? He avoided my eyes. We talked. Without me, you are independent. That word had been used against me since I was 18. Independent meant I paid for college without asking him. Independent meant I built a career without family connections. Independent meant I was the person everyone called during emergencies because I could handle things. It also meant they believed they could exclude me without consequence. You do not need anything from the estate, Dad said. Derek laughed. There it is. I looked at him. What? The rich cousin speech. I am not rich. You work in finance. I investigate financial fraud for a living. Same world. No. He waved one hand. You have an apartment in the city. You travel. No kids, no big bills. You are fine. I almost asked how he knew my bills. Then I remembered the answer. He did not. My family did not know that I had spent nearly $40,000 over 2 years covering Grandpa's home care when insurance stopped paying for certain support. They did not know I had paid the back taxes on the vineyard after Martin forgot to submit the payment. They did not know I had lent Bennett Packaging money through a private bridge note during a supply crisis. They did not know because Grandpa had asked me to keep those things private. He had been proud. I had respected that. Now my silence was being used as evidence that I had contributed nothing. I looked around the table. Has anyone seen the final will? Caroline answered too quickly. We saw the summary. What summary? The asset schedule. From whom? Grandpa's desk. My body became still. Who opened his desk? Martin's jaw tightened. We were looking for insurance papers. Before or after the funeral? That is not relevant. It is to me. Dad cut in. Maya. No. I want to know when they went through his private files. Caroline placed her glass down. The day after he died. I stared at her. The day after he died, I had been choosing a suit for him to be buried in. Caroline and Martin had been inside his office reading financial documents. Was the desk locked? I asked. No one answered. Was it? Derek shifted in his seat. It was an old lock. I looked at him. You broke it. It opened. With what? A screwdriver. The anger arrived so sharply that I tasted metal. Grandpa had kept that desk for 40 years. It was where he wrote birthday cards, where he stored letters from Grandma, where he kept the first dollar earned by Bennett Packaging. They had opened it with a screwdriver before the flowers from the hospital room had wilted. I heard Grandpa's voice. Let them finish. So I did. What did the summary say? I asked. Martin pulled a photocopied document from a folder. It was 3 pages long. The first page listed major assets. The second listed estimated values. The third contained notes about beneficiaries, but the copy was incomplete. I knew that immediately. The bottom of page 3 ended mid-sentence. All distributions are subject to the conditions stated in article. Then nothing. No page 4, no signature, no witness page, no trust schedule, no codicil, no letter of direction. You divided $14 million based on 3 unfinished pages? I asked. Dad leaned back. The main intention is clear. Is it? Children receive equal shares. Where does it say that? He pointed to the second paragraph. To my surviving children, I leave the benefit of my estate in equal measure, subject to the administration, protection, and conditions described below. Dad stopped reading after equal measure. Everyone had. The line they liked was in the middle. The warning was at the end. Subject to the administration, protection, and conditions described below. They had skipped the part that required another page. Caroline said, "The rest is legal language. How do you know if you did not read it?" "We know, Dad." I almost laughed. No one at that table knew him during the last year. They knew his old stories. His holiday habits, his public image. I knew which food he could tolerate after treatment. I knew he watched old courtroom dramas when he could not sleep. I knew he had stopped trusting Martin with company money. I knew he had sold one of the classic cars 6 months earlier and told Derek the engine was being restored. I knew he had changed his estate plan. And I knew the woman coming to dinner was not merely a notary. Her name was Evelyn Shaw. She had prepared Grandpa's final trust documents with an estate attorney, witnessed his signature, and held the sealed original. My family thought she was coming to confirm the copy they found. They believed the evening would end with handshakes and asset transfers. I knew it would end differently. At 7:32, the doorbell rang. Everyone sat straighter. Caroline fixed her hair. Martin closed the folder. Dad looked at me. "Please do not create a scene." I met his eyes. "I won't have to." Evelyn entered carrying a black leather case and a sealed document envelope. She was 68, silver-haired, exact, and completely unimpressed by wealth. Grandpa trusted her because she had once refused to notarize a document he had signed on the wrong line, even though he argued for 20 minutes. She greeted the room, accepted no wine, and sat at the empty chair near the head of the table. Then she noticed the asset cards. Her eyes moved from the lake house to the company to the blank card in front of me. "What is this?" she asked. Caroline smiled. "Just helping organize the discussion." Evelyn looked at her. "Before the will is read?" "We have seen the summary." "No," Evelyn said. "You have seen a photocopy of an unsigned planning schedule." The room changed. Martin opened his folder. It was in Dad's desk. "I know." He frowned. "How?" "Because Mr. Bennett told me he intended to leave it there." Everyone looked at her. Evelyn placed the sealed envelope on the table. "He said anyone who opened the locked drawer before the formal reading would likely stop after page 3. My father's face tightened. I looked down at the blank card and remembered Grandpa's final smile when he made me promise not to interrupt. He had known. Not every detail, but enough. Evelyn opened the envelope. Caroline spoke first. "Before we begin, we should clarify that this is a family dinner." "No," Evelyn said. "This is an estate meeting occurring at a dinner table." She removed the will, then a trust document, then a smaller sealed letter with my name on it. Derek noticed. "What is that?" Evelyn did not answer him. She adjusted her glasses. "I will begin with the line your copy ended before." No one moved. She read slowly. "All distributions are subject to the conditions stated in Article 9, including the family stewardship provision, the employee protection trust, and the forfeiture terms applicable to premature division, concealment, coercion, or attempted sale." The room went silent. Martin leaned forward. "What forfeiture terms?" Evelyn turned the page. "The terms you skipped." Evelyn did not rush. That was what made the room unbearable. She read every word as if she had been waiting for this exact table, these exact cards, and these exact faces. Any named beneficiary who, before formal administration, knowingly attempts to divide, promise, sell, transfer, hide, damage, or claim exclusive control over estate property shall have that conduct reviewed by the independent trustee. If the conduct is found intentional and materially harmful, the beneficiary's direct distribution may be suspended, reduced, or redirected into the Bennett Stewardship Trust. Derek pushed his chair back. That cannot be legal. Evelyn looked at him over her glasses. Which part? You cannot punish someone for talking. The document does not punish conversation. She glanced at the cards. It addresses intentional acts involving property no one yet owns. Caroline quickly gathered the lake house card. These were symbolic. You wrote room measurements on the back, I said. Her hand stopped. Everyone looked at me. I had noticed when I sat down. The card listed the square footage of the main bedrooms, recent property taxes, and the name of a real estate agent. Evelyn held out her hand. Caroline did not move. May I see it? It is only a note. Then you should have no concern. Caroline passed it over. Evelyn read the back. Marston Realty. Suggested listing in September. Estimated value $2.3 million. Dad turned toward her. You plan to sell it? Caroline's face hardened. I explored options. You said you wanted it for family memories. We can make memories somewhere easier to maintain. I watched my father absorb the truth. He was shocked by Caroline's plan, even though he had come to dinner prepared to take the downtown building and sell it himself. People often recognize greed most clearly when it wears someone else's name. Evelyn collected the remaining cards. Dad's building card listed a meeting with a commercial buyer. Martin's company card included the phrase management transfer immediately. Derek's car card named an auction house. Olivia's jewelry card contained photographs of pieces she had taken from Grandpa's safe before the funeral. I stared at the pictures. Where did you get those? Olivia's face lost color. Grandpa showed me. No, he didn't. How would you know? Because the emerald brooch was moved to the bank vault 2 years ago. Her eyes flicked toward Dad. That was enough. You opened the safe too, I said. Dad spoke quickly. Maya, calm down. What did she take? Nothing, Olivia said. Evelyn placed the card flat. Were any items removed from the house? No. Were any photographed for sale? No. I held out my hand. Give me your phone. Olivia laughed. You are not serious. Then show Evelyn the messages with the jeweler. Silence. I had not seen any messages. I had guessed. Olivia's reaction confirmed it. Evelyn closed the will. The reading is paused. Martin stood. You cannot pause it because Maya is making accusations. I am pausing because estate property may have been accessed, photographed, promised, or removed before inventory. No one removed anything. Then a documented review will resolve that. Derek threw his napkin onto the table. This is insane. Grandpa would never set a trap for us. I looked at him. He did not set a trap. He left instructions. It is the same thing. No. A trap harms someone for stepping where they could not see. Instructions only harm people who choose not to read them. His face tightened. You knew. The table turned toward me. I did not answer quickly. That was answer enough. Dad stared. Dad stared. How much did you know? I knew the final estate plan included a stewardship trust. And you let us sit here. Yes. Caroline's voice rose. You let us humiliate ourselves. No, I let you assign assets that did not belong to you. You should have warned us. Grandpa warned you at the bottom of page 3. Martin slammed one hand on the table. This is exactly why no one included you. You enjoy being the smartest person in the room. I felt the old sting. He had used that line since I was a teenager. Whenever I noticed a contradiction, I was arrogant. Whenever I corrected a number, I was showing off. Whenever I refused a bad decision, I wanted control. I do not enjoy this, I said. Of course you do. No, I expected greed. I did not expect you to break his desk and photograph his property before he was buried." Dad stood. Enough. His voice carried the authority that had controlled our family for years. But Evelyn did not look impressed. "Sit down, Robert." My father stared at her. She held his gaze. "Your father appointed me temporary document custodian and directed that the reading occur only if all primary beneficiaries were present. If you leave, the process pauses and the review proceeds without your explanation." Dad sat. It was the first time I had seen someone outside the family tell him what to do and watch him obey. Evelyn reopened the trust. "Mr. Bennett's estate has an estimated gross value of $14.2 million. That figure includes Bennett Packaging, 3 real properties, investment accounts, vehicles, personal property, and insurance proceeds. It does not represent $14 million in cash." Everyone's excitement had ignored that difference. She continued, "Debts, taxes, employee obligations, maintenance reserves, charitable commitments, and administrative costs must be addressed before individual distributions." Derek looked confused. "So, how much is actually left?" Evelyn's expression cooled. "The estate reading is not a lottery announcement." He looked away. "The Bennett Packaging shares, the downtown building, and the vineyard operating land will be placed into the Bennett Stewardship Trust for a minimum of 10 years, she said. "They may not be sold during that period except under defined emergency conditions." Martin's face reddened. "He cannot lock up the company for 10 years. He did. I run that company." Evelyn turned a page. "You are currently operations director. I was supposed to become president. According to whom?" "My father. Do you have that in writing?" Martin looked at the copy from the desk. The unsigned summary listed him as a possible management successor. Possible, not appointed. "What does the final document say?" he asked. Evelyn read, "Management of Bennett Packaging shall continue under professional oversight. No family member shall receive automatic executive authority by reason of inheritance." Martin looked as though the room had tilted. "Then who is president?" "Mr. Bennett appointed an interim board 6 months ago. I am on the board." "No." His face went still. "I knew why. 3 months earlier, Grandpa had asked me to review company accounts. I found personal charges hidden under vendor payments, a vacation labeled as a client retreat, renovation materials delivered to Martin's house, a consulting fee paid to a company owned by Derek. None of the amounts alone would have destroyed Bennett Packaging. Together, they showed a pattern. Grandpa confronted Martin privately. Martin blamed accounting mistakes. Grandpa did not believe him. He removed Martin from future succession plans but kept him employed because firing his son while dying felt, in his words, like leaving a fire for everyone else. Evelyn continued. "The interim board consists of 2 long-serving managers, 1 independent accountant, 1 employee representative, and Maya Bennett as chair." The room erupted. Martin stood again. Caroline shouted, "Absolutely not!" Derek said something I could not hear. Olivia stared at me as if I had stolen jewelry from her. My father said nothing. That hurt more than the shouting. He looked at me with betrayal, not pride. As if Grandpa choosing me was an act I had committed against him. Evelyn waited for the noise to lower. Then she said, "Ms. Bennett receives no automatic ownership of company shares through the chair position. She serves as fiduciary supervisor under the trust." Martin laughed bitterly. "So she controls it without owning it. She is required to protect it without treating it as personal property. The distinction was everything Grandpa cared about. My family heard only control." Caroline pointed at me. She manipulated him. I had expected the accusation. It still hurt. "How? You were with him every day. He was dying. You controlled who visited. I scheduled visits around medical care. You handled his papers. I organized hospital documents. You paid his bills. Because they were overdue." "Exactly." Her eyes brightened. "You created dependence." I looked around the table. "Where were all of you?" No one answered. "You say I made him depend on me. I asked each of you for help. I turned to Dad. I asked you to stay with him during his first treatment week. He looked down. You said work was busy. I turned to Caroline. I asked you to take him to the cardiology appointment. You said you had already arranged transport. After you said you could not, I looked at Martin. I asked you to send payroll reports because he was worried about the company. Martin's face hardened. You had no right to those reports. He owned the company. I looked at Olivia. I asked you to visit when Grandma's anniversary came because he was depressed. She swallowed. I had the children. You posted from a spa that weekend. Her eyes flashed. Then Derek. I asked you to bring the blue roadster back after he requested it. It needed work. You had moved it into a private storage unit. It was safer there. For the auction? He looked away. I let the silence stay. You do not get to call care manipulation because it makes your absence visible. Caroline began to cry. Not from grief, from anger. That is cruel. No. Cruel was making me explain to him why his children kept canceling. My father stood again, slower this time. I did visit. Yes. I called. Yes. You are making it sound like we abandoned him. I looked at him. Do you want me to tell the truth or protect your version? His face changed. For 1 second, I saw not my father but Grandpa's son, a man who had spent his whole life believing occasional attention counted as devotion. He sat. Evelyn resumed. The lake house is not part of the 10-year operating trust. It is held separately under the family use agreement. Caroline wiped her face quickly. What does that mean? It cannot be sold for 5 years. Family members may reserve it through a shared schedule. Maintenance costs are paid by the estate reserve for 2 years, then shared among users. I want my share paid out. You do not have an individual ownership share in the house. Caroline stared. Then who does? The trust. That is ridiculous. It prevents one person from selling a place Mr. Bennett intended for family use. Her own card sat beside her hand with the real estate agent's name visible. She folded it closed. Evelyn continued. The classic vehicles are donated to the Bennett Technical Education Foundation, except the green coupe, which is left to a named individual. Derek leaned forward. Which individual? Miguel Santos. Derek stared blankly. I knew the name. Miguel had been Grandpa's mechanic and friend for 38 years. He had kept the old cars running, taught local students basic restoration, and visited Grandpa every Friday during hospice. Derek had called him the help at the funeral. That car was promised to me, Derek said. Evelyn read a note. Derek enjoys the appearance of the cars, but has shown no interest in their care. Miguel kept the coupe alive when I could not drive. It belongs with someone who understands stewardship. Derek's face became red. This is Maya's language. I almost laughed. Grandpa knew the word stewardship before I was born. No one talks like that. He did. Not until you started spending every day with him. Evelyn closed the note. Mr. Bennett recorded a video statement regarding capacity and intent. His physician and attorney were present. Allegations of manipulation will be addressed through formal channels, not shouting. The word video changed the room. Everyone had been willing to imagine Grandpa confused. A recording made that harder. Olivia touched the jewelry card. What about Grandma's collection? Evelyn looked at her. Most pieces were placed into a rotating family trust after your grandmother's death. They are not individually inherited. Certain items have named recipients. Olivia glanced at me. The emerald brooch? Donated to the county museum with your grandmother's wedding dress. Her mouth fell open. She would never want that. Evelyn removed another letter. Your grandmother signed the donation directions 6 years ago. That ended the argument. Olivia's card became meaningless. One by one, the prizes disappeared. Not because Grandpa had disinherited everyone, because he had refused to let them turn a lifetime into immediate cash. The investment accounts remained. That was where the direct distributions would come from. Evelyn explained that after obligations, each of Grandpa's 3 children could receive a conditional trust valued at approximately $1 million. My father, Caroline, Martin, not ownership of specific assets, not control, a protected trust with quarterly distributions, financial reporting, and restrictions against pledging the principal as collateral. Caroline stared. So we cannot access the full amount? Not immediately. I am 58 years old. The document is aware of your age. Derek tried not to laugh. She glared at him. Then Evelyn explained the next layer. Grandchildren would receive education, housing, or business development trusts ranging from $100,000 to $400,000, depending on prior gifts, loans, and documented need. Derek's expression changed. Prior gifts? Yes. What does that mean? Money Mr. Bennett already provided is considered an advance where the records identify it as such. Derek had received more than $600,000 over 10 years. Failed restaurant. Failed fitness studio. Failed online car business. Each time, Grandpa had called it a loan. Derek had called it support. What is my amount? He asked. Evelyn checked the schedule. Your prior advances exceed the standard grandchild allocation. His face emptied. So nothing? You retain access to the Education Foundation if you pursue certified training. I am 31. Education remains legal at 31. He pushed his chair back again. This whole thing was written to embarrass us. No, I said. You are embarrassed because the numbers remember what the family forgot. He pointed at me. You probably got millions. Evelyn looked toward the smaller envelope. Maya's distribution is addressed separately. Every face turned. I had not seen the letter. Grandpa had told me my role in the company trust. He had not told me what, if anything, he left me personally. I felt my heartbeat change. Evelyn opened the envelope with my name. Inside was a 1-page letter and a smaller key. She read the first line silently, then looked at me. He directed that you read this yourself. She handed me the letter. My hands shook. Not because I expected money, because the paper carried Grandpa's handwriting. Maya, if you are reading this at Caroline's table, then I was right about the place cards. A sound escaped me. Half laugh, half sob. Everyone stared. I continued reading silently. He wrote that wealth reveals what grief temporarily hides. He wrote that his children were not evil, but they had learned to measure love through access. He wrote that I had cared for him without asking what I would receive. Then I reached the line that changed my understanding of the entire estate. I did not choose you because you were closest to me at the end. I chose you because you were the only person who told me I was wrong when I still had time to fix it. I read the sentence again. I did not choose you because you were closest to me at the end. I chose you because you were the only person who told me I was wrong when I still had time to fix it. My family waited. I could not continue aloud yet. The memory returned with painful clarity. 2 years earlier, Bennett Packaging had posted its best profit in a decade. Grandpa wanted to celebrate with a company dinner. I had reviewed the books because he was considering selling a small share to an outside investor. During the review, I found that executive bonuses had increased, while hourly wages had barely moved. Temporary workers had been denied a scheduled increase after management claimed margins were too thin. The margins were not thin. Martin had shifted the money into executive compensation and a strategic reserve he later used for management vehicles. I showed Grandpa. He defended Martin first. Then he defended the company. Then he said workers should be grateful for stable jobs. I told him that gratitude was not a salary. We fought for 2 hours. He called me young. I called him unfair. He said I did not understand what it took to build a business. I said building something did not give him the right to forget who kept it standing. He did not speak to me for 12 days. Then he called. He had met 3 employees privately. One was caring for a disabled husband. One had worked at Bennett Packaging for 27 years and still could not afford to retire. One was using payday loans between checks. Grandpa raised wages, canceled the management vehicle program, created an employee profit-sharing plan, and removed Martin's authority over compensation. He never apologized directly. He sent me a photograph of the first revised payroll report with one sentence: "You were unpleasant and correct." That was Grandpa. Pride with a narrow door. But he opened it. I looked down at the letter. He wrote that he had made mistakes with his children too. He had used money to rescue them from consequences, then resented them for needing rescue. He had confused giving with teaching. He had rewarded silence because disagreement felt disrespectful. He had left every family problem for the next check to solve. The estate plan was his final attempt to stop doing that. My voice shook as I read the last paragraph aloud. I leave Maya the farmhouse, its surrounding 6 acres, and the contents of my private library, not as payment for care, but because she understands that memory requires maintenance. I also leave her a personal trust equal to the standard grandchild allocation, reduced by nothing she spent on my care, because those payments were loans to me and must first be repaid from the estate. I stopped. My father looked at me. What payments? I folded the letter once. Home care costs. How much? That is private, Evelyn corrected me gently. It is now an estate obligation. She checked a schedule. The documented amount is $38,460, excluding unpaid time. Dad stared. You paid that? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I asked for help before I paid it. That is not the same thing. No, it was earlier. He flinched. Caroline looked at the letter. You get the farmhouse? Yes. That property is worth almost $900,000. Evelyn responded, approximately $820,000 in its current condition. Caroline laughed in disbelief. And she gets a grandchild trust too? Yes. So she gets more than the rest of us. No, Evelyn said. She receives less total beneficial value than each child's conditional trust. She also accepts responsibility for the farmhouse preservation agreement, archive access, property taxes after the reserve period, and restrictions against sale for 10 years. Caroline barely heard the restrictions. She gets a house. I looked at her lake house card. You plan to take a larger one. That is different. Because you chose it? Her face hardened. Martin leaned toward Evelyn. What happens to our $1 million trusts under the forfeiture clause? That was the question everyone had been avoiding. Evelyn turned to Article 9. The direct child trusts are temporarily suspended pending review. How long? Up to 1 year. Dad's face changed. A year? Yes. What are we supposed to live on? I stared at him. My father owned a 4-bedroom house, 2 vehicles, retirement accounts, and a consulting business. He was not asking how to live. He was asking how to live without immediate access to new money. Evelyn continued. Normal emergency provisions remain available. However, no discretionary distribution will be made until the independent trustee completes the conduct review. Caroline stood. I refuse. You are free to disclaim your interest. What does that mean? You receive nothing, and the amount remains in the stewardship trust. She sat. Martin spoke carefully. What exactly will the review examine? Evelyn began listing it. Unauthorized entry into the farmhouse, damage to the desk, access to financial files, removal or photography of personal property, contact with potential buyers, promises made regarding estate assets, any concealment of documents, any financial transactions involving Bennett Packaging during Grandpa's final year. Martin stopped her. Company transactions are separate, not when company shares are part of the estate and the trust instrument directs a governance audit. He looked at me. This is your fraud investigation. I did not write the clause. But you will run the audit. No. That surprised him. Evelyn explained that an outside accounting firm had already been appointed. I would receive reports as board chair, but I would not conduct the investigation. Grandpa had anticipated the accusation that I would use the process for revenge. He had placed distance between my authority and their review. Martin still looked afraid. I knew why. The management vehicles were not the only issue. Grandpa had asked me about vendor payments in his final months. I had found unusual invoices from a company called Northridge Consulting. The company belonged to Derek. Bennett Packaging had paid Northridge nearly $210,000 over 3 years. The services were described as market analysis, transportation strategy, and digital growth. Derek had no employees, no office, no transportation experience. His online car business had used the same address. I had given the records to Grandpa. He said he would handle it. Then his health declined. I did not know what he had done. Now Martin and Derek's fear told me the answer. Nothing had been resolved. Derek tried to sound casual. How deep is the company audit? Evelyn looked directly at him. Deep enough to identify whether consulting services were delivered. His chair creaked as he leaned back. Caroline turned toward Martin. What did you do? Nothing. Why is he looking at Derek? No one is looking at anyone. Everyone was looking at Derek. He raised both hands. I did marketing work. What marketing? I asked. He looked at me. Digital strategy. Show us one campaign. This is not a trial. No, trials have more preparation. Dad spoke sharply. Maya, I turned. Why are you defending them? I am trying to stop this from becoming a public attack. It became public when they used company money. We do not know that. I know the invoices exist. His face changed. You reviewed company records? At Grandpa's request. When? 3 months ago. And you did not tell me? You are not on the board. I am his son. The sentence came automatically, as if blood were a professional qualification, as if being someone's son granted access to every concern, while being someone's granddaughter granted none. Evelyn closed the trust. There is one more item before the video statement. Everyone looked toward her. She removed a printed email from her case. Mr. Bennett's attorney sent notice to each of his children 4 days before his death. The message instructed you not to enter the farmhouse office, access estate records, contact buyers, or make private arrangements before the formal reading. Caroline frowned. I never received that. Evelyn placed 3 delivery confirmations on the table. The messages were opened. Dad looked at his copy. I saw the exact moment he remembered. Martin said, "An email is not proof that we understood." The subject line was estate property. Do not access before formal reading. Derek looked at my father. You said it was standard legal nonsense. The table went still. Dad turned. What? You told us the email did not matter. I said we needed the insurance records. You said no one could stop us from going into a house we grew up in. My father's face lost color. Caroline looked at him. You said Dad had probably forgotten what was in the desk. I did not tell you to break it. You gave Derek the screwdriver. I stared at my father. He had not merely joined after the plan began. He had started it. Dad looked at me. Maya, listen. I did not speak. We needed the policy numbers. The funeral home needed information. There were bills. The policy information was with the attorney, Evelyn said. Dad ignored her. I thought the desk might contain a newer will. The truth arrived. Not insurance. A will. He had wanted to know before the reading. Why? I asked. He looked at the blank card, then at my letter. You were with him constantly. I knew he had changed things. So you broke into his desk to see whether he left me something. I was protecting the family. From what? He did not answer. From me? No. Then from what? From an unfair decision made while he was sick. The room became very quiet. I felt something inside me tear. Not because he doubted the will. Because he had decided any choice favoring me must have come from illness. You thought Grandpa choosing me was proof he was not thinking clearly. Dad rubbed his forehead. That is not what I said. It is exactly what you said. I was concerned. You were concerned I might matter. His eyes flashed. Do not twist this. I do not need to. I looked at Evelyn. Continue. Dad reached toward me. Maya. I moved my chair back. Let her finish. He had spent the entire dinner telling me not to become emotional. Now that the emotion belonged to him, he wanted the process paused. Evelyn prepared the video. She placed a tablet on the table and turned it so everyone could see. Grandpa appeared on the screen. He was thinner than most of them remembered. He wore a blue cardigan and sat behind the desk they later broke. His voice was weak but clear. If you are watching this, I am dead, which is inconvenient because several of you will suddenly become experts on what I intended. No one laughed. I did. Quietly. That was exactly how he spoke. He looked directly into the camera. I love my children. Robert, Caroline, Martin. I also know you. That is why I did not leave you unrestricted pieces of the estate. Caroline began crying. Grandpa continued. Robert, you think fairness means authority should move from father to oldest son. It does not. Caroline, you believe memories belong to the person who tells the best story about them. They do not. Martin, you have confused working in my company with owning my company. You do not? Martin's jaw tightened. Derek, if you are there, the green coupe belongs to Miguel. Do not embarrass yourself. Even Evelyn almost smiled. Then Grandpa's expression changed. Maya, if they accuse you of writing this, remind them that you wanted me to distribute more money directly. I refused. Everyone looked at me. It was true. I had argued that the conditions would create resentment. Grandpa said resentment already existed. The estate would only reveal it. I did not choose Maya because she obeyed me, he said. I chose her because she did not. My eyes filled. She told me the employee trust was too small. She told me the vineyard workers deserved housing support. She told me I had used money to avoid apologizing to my own children. She was right often enough to become exhausting. Uncrate. A small laugh escaped Ava. Then Grandpa said the line that made my father look away. If you opened my desk after receiving the attorney's warning, the review is not Maya's revenge. It is the consequence I wrote down before you acted. The video ended. No one spoke. The food had gone cold. The candles were lower. The place cards remained on the table like evidence from a crime no one had expected to be recorded. Then Martin stood. This is not over. Evelyn looked up. No, administration has only begun. I will challenge the will. You may. I will challenge his capacity. You may. I will challenge Maya's appointment. You may. Each calm answer made him angrier. You think the video settles everything? No. The physician's evaluation, attorney notes, witness statements, and prior drafts also matter. He looked at me. If the company collapses because of this, it is on you. I stood slowly. No, if the company collapses, the audit will tell us whose decisions caused it. He left without his coat. Derek followed. Caroline gathered her purse, then stopped beside the lemon pie. Dad hated lemon at the end, she said. I looked at her. He could no longer taste sweetness. Lemon was one of the few flavors he could still recognize. She stared at the pie. She had tried to turn even that into proof she knew him better. Now she had no answer. She left. Olivia remained seated. Dad remained too. The dinner that began as a celebration of inheritance had become a waiting room for consequences. And the worst truth had not yet appeared. Because while everyone had been arguing about houses, cars, and jewelry, the outside accountants were already examining Bennett packaging. 3 days later, they found a transfer that made the place cards look harmless. The transfer was $1.8 million. It had left Bennett packaging 6 weeks before Grandpa died. On paper, the payment was for a warehouse acquisition deposit. The receiving company was called Harbor Industrial Partners. The name sounded legitimate. The address was a mailbox. The owners were hidden behind another company. The outside accountants followed the filings through 2 states and found the beneficial owners, Martin Bennett, Derek Bennett, and Robert Bennett. My father. I received the preliminary report at 7:14 on a Friday morning. I read the ownership page 3 times. Then I called the accounting firm. Is this verified? Yes. Could the names be used without their knowledge? Possible, but unlikely. We have signed formation documents for Martin and Derek. Robert Bennett appears on a financing authorization. I closed my eyes. What was Harbor supposed to buy? The old Southline warehouse. Bennett Packaging had leased Southline for 15 years. The lease was expiring. Grandpa had wanted the company to buy the property directly. Instead, Harbor Industrial had signed a purchase option. The plan was simple. Use Bennett Packaging money to secure the warehouse through a private family company. Then lease the building back to Bennett Packaging at a higher rate. Martin and Derek would own the landlord. The family company would pay them rent. My father had authorized a loan guarantee because he believed he would inherit enough estate money to cover his share. They had built a private deal around an inheritance none of them yet possessed. I understood the place cards differently after that. The dinner was not only greed, it was financing. Dad needed the downtown building because he planned to borrow against it. Martin needed control of Bennett Packaging to approve the new lease. Derek needed the cars because he had promised an auction advance to cover part of Harbor's closing costs. Caroline may not have known the full plan. Olivia probably did not, but my father had. The blank card in front of me was not merely an insult, it was protection. If I received nothing, I had no leverage to question the transaction. Grandpa must have discovered part of it. That was why he ordered the audit. I drove to the farmhouse. The lock on the office had been replaced after the dinner. The broken desk remained inside, one drawer hanging slightly crooked. I sat in Grandpa's chair and placed the report in front of me. For the first time since his death, I felt angry with him. Not because of the trust, because he had known enough to worry and still left me to handle the explosion. He had created protections, but protections do not prevent pain. They organize it. My phone rang. Dad. I let it ring once, then answered. We need to talk, he said. Yes. Not over the phone. Come to the farmhouse. He arrived 40 minutes later. He entered the office, saw the report, and stopped. You know. Yes. He closed the door. I can explain. Everyone says that when the facts arrive first. Sit down. His expression changed. I had never told my father to sit down. He did. I placed the ownership page in front of him. Did you authorize Harbor Industrial? Yes. Did you know Bennett Packaging funded the deposit? I knew the company advanced money. Advanced to a company you partly owned. I did not receive money. That is not what I asked. He rubbed his hands together. Martin said Dad wanted the warehouse secured but was moving too slowly. Grandpa wanted Bennett Packaging to buy it. The company's lender would not approve the full purchase quickly. So you created a private landlord. To keep the warehouse available, at a higher future rent. That was Martin's model. And your return? He did not answer. Dad, 8%. I looked away. He had expected an 8% return from a property purchased with Grandpa's company funds and supported by his anticipated inheritance. Did Grandpa approve the transfer? Martin said he did. Did you ask Grandpa? No. Why? He was sick. He was still chairman. He could barely get through a meeting. He recorded a complete estate statement. That is different. It is different because the video proves you wrong. Dad stood, then sat again. His anger had nowhere safe to go. I thought the deal protected the company. You also thought it paid you 8%. I was risking my guarantee, with collateral you did not own yet. He looked at the report. Can it be fixed? There it was. Not. Was it wrong? Can it be fixed? The family had asked me that question my entire life. Can you fix the grade? The reservation? The missed deadline? Grandpa's care? The estate? Now a $1.8 million transfer. What does fixed mean to you? I asked. The warehouse stays available. The company gets the money back, no public case. And you keep your share? No, he answered quickly. Too quickly. I waited. No, he said again. I give it up. What about Martin and Derek? They will fight. That is not an answer. I cannot decide for them. You decided with them. He looked older than he had at the funeral. What happens if the trust reports this? The board freezes the transaction, demands return of funds, and reviews whether company officers violated their duties. The lender is notified if required. Harbor may lose the purchase option. Bennett Packaging could lose the warehouse. Yes. Employees could lose jobs. Possibly. He leaned forward. Then keeping it private protects them. I stared at him. That is how every cover-up introduces itself. His face tightened. I am not asking you to hide theft. What would you call it? A bad structure. A bad structure you personally expected to profit from. I did not design it. You signed it. He looked toward Grandpa's empty shelves. What do you want me to do? For once, I did not answer immediately. I wanted him to apologize. I wanted him to admit he had excluded me because he feared I would see through the plan. I wanted him to say he had been wrong about me before Grandpa ever chose me. But a state administration could not become a machine for producing the apology I wanted. That would turn Grandpa's trust into my weapon. So I gave him the same answer I would give any subject in an investigation. Tell the truth in writing. Turn over every message. Surrender your harbor interest. Do not contact Martin or Derek to coordinate explanations. Let the independent board decide the remedy. And if I do, I will document your cooperation. Will you protect me? No. He closed his eyes. That was the moment my father finally understood my role. I was not the daughter who could make the problem disappear. I was the person required to stop it from disappearing. He signed a written disclosure that afternoon. He transferred his harbor interest to an independent escrow account. He gave the accountants access to his email. One message hurt more than the rest. It was from Martin, sent 2 months before Grandpa died. If Maya gets involved, the deal dies. Robert, make sure she stays focused on the medical side. Dad had replied. She does not need to know business details. 6 words. She does not need to know. He had not simply forgotten me at the estate dinner. He had deliberately kept me useful in one room and powerless in another. I printed the message and placed it inside Grandpa's file. Then I cried in the farmhouse kitchen until I could breathe normally. The board met on Monday. Martin arrived with an attorney. Derek did not attend. My father came alone. The outside accountant presented the findings. Martin denied wrongdoing. He said Harbor had been formed to save the warehouse. He said the transfer was an authorized strategic deposit. He said Grandpa had verbally supported the idea. Then Evelyn played a second video. Grandpa sat at his desk, dated 7 weeks before his death. I have been told Martin is considering a private purchase of Southline, he said. I do not approve Bennett Packaging funds being used for any entity owned by my family. If money has moved, it must be returned. Martin's attorney asked to stop the video. The board refused. Grandpa continued. If Robert is involved, he will tell himself he is protecting the company. Robert has always found a respectable sentence to place in front of a personal benefit. Dad lowered his head. If Derek is involved, he will claim he provided consulting. Ask for the work. Derek had provided none. The video ended. Martin's defense collapsed. The board removed him as operations director. Harbor returned $1.5 million that remained in escrow from the unfinished purchase. The missing $300,000 had been spent on fees, deposits, and related expenses. Martin and Derek became personally responsible for repayment under a settlement. My father's guarantee helped cover part of the loss. The board negotiated directly with the warehouse seller and secured a new purchase option for Bennett Packaging. The price was higher, but the company kept the property. No employees lost their jobs. There was no dramatic arrest. No handcuffs, no television reporters, There were attorneys, repayment schedules, resignations, tax consequences, and reputations that changed quietly in rooms without cameras. That is what most real consequences look like. Paper. Signatures. Doors that stop opening. Derek called me after the settlement. You destroyed my future. I held the phone away from my ear. You billed Grandpa's company for work you did not perform. Martin handled the invoices. Your company received the money. I spent years helping him. Show the work. He cursed. Then he said, Grandpa would not want family treated this way. I looked at the video transcript. Grandpa created the review. You turned him against us. No, the records did. You think you are better than everyone. No. You got the house. The company, the trust, everything. I do not own the company. You control it. I chair a board. Same thing. It is only the same thing to someone who has never respected boundaries. He hung up. His grandchild trust was redirected into a monitored repayment and education structure. He could access funding for certified training, health needs, or housing after meeting conditions. He could not withdraw cash to launch another vague business. He called that disinheritance. Evelyn called it the exact plan Grandpa signed. Martin filed a challenge to the will. He claimed undue influence and lack of capacity. The physician testified that Grandpa understood his assets and decisions. The estate attorney produced 4 drafts written over 18 months. The employee trust appeared in all 4. My board role appeared before Grandpa's final illness became severe. The videos showed his reasoning. Martin withdrew the challenge after his attorney explained that continuing could trigger the trust's no contest provision and increase his legal costs. Caroline cooperated with the estate review. She admitted contacting the real estate agent. She returned copies of documents taken from the desk. She agreed to pay for the lock and repair. Her child trust remained suspended for 6 months, then began normal quarterly distributions. She never apologized to me directly. Instead, she mailed the lake house card to the farmhouse with the real estate agent's name crossed out. On the back she wrote, I was wrong about the memories. It was not enough, but it was a beginning. Olivia turned over her messages with the jeweler. She had requested estimates but had not removed any jewelry. Her grandchild trust was reduced by the cost of the review and placed under a 5-year distribution schedule. She blamed me for 3 months. Then one evening she came to the farmhouse carrying Grandma's silver locket. You got the only thing she gave with a letter, she said. Yes. I used to think that meant she loved you more. She gave you her pearl earrings. She gave them through Mom. There was no letter. I looked at my sister. All those years, I thought she had mocked the locket because it was cheap. She had mocked it because it came with words. I did not know, I said. You never asked. The sentence sounded familiar, painfully familiar. I invited her inside. We read Grandma's letter together. It did not say she loved me more. It said I listened when old people repeated stories. Olivia cried. So did I. That conversation did not erase what she had done. It reminded me that greed sometimes grows around older wounds no one named. My father's trust remained suspended for the full year. He cooperated with every review. He sold one of his vehicles to cover part of the harbor loss. He resigned from 2 local boards after the conflict became known privately. Friends stopped calling. For the first time in his life, he experienced a problem I could not solve without betraying my own responsibility. We spoke rarely. Then, 8 months after the dinner, he came to the farmhouse. I was repairing the broken desk drawer. He stood in the doorway holding a small wooden box. I found this in my office, he said. Inside was the first dollar Grandpa earned from Bennett Packaging. The one that had been stored in the desk. Dad had taken it the day they broke the lock. I stared at him. Why? I wanted something before the estate could tell me I did not matter. The honesty stopped me. He placed the box on the desk. I told myself it was mine because I was his oldest son. Was it listed in the inventory? No. Then you concealed estate property. Yes. You know I have to report it. Yes. He nodded. That is why I brought it. I called Evelyn while he sat in the kitchen. The dollar was added to the inventory. His cooperation was noted. His trust suspension was not extended because he returned it voluntarily before the review closed. After the call, I sat across from him. Why now? Dad looked at his hands. Because every morning I saw that box and remembered the blank card. I said nothing. I told them not to put your name on an asset. The confession came quietly. Caroline wanted to give you some furniture. Olivia suggested the library. I said you had already received enough of Dad's attention. My throat tightened. At the dinner? Before. So the blank card was yours? Yes. He looked at me. I thought if Dad left you something important, it meant he had chosen you over me. He chose a trustee. I know that now. He left you $1 million trust. I know. And you still felt replaced. Yes. The answer was not reasonable. It was true. He continued. When he got sick, you became the person he called. You knew the doctors, the passwords, the company concerns. I was his son, and I felt like a visitor. You could have shown up. I know. You could have answered when I asked for help. I know. You could have asked me what he needed instead of deciding I had taken your place. I know. Anger rose with every agreement. You do not get points for knowing now. I am not asking for points. Then what are you asking for? He looked toward the repaired desk. A chance to stop lying about why I did it. I wanted to punish him. Not financially. Emotionally. I wanted to describe every lonely night at Grandpa's bedside until my father carried the weight I had carried. But Grandpa's letter came back to me. I chose you because you told me I was wrong when I still had time to fix it. Dad was wrong. He was also still alive. I cannot forgive you today, I said. He nodded. But you can help repair the desk. He looked up. That is not forgiveness. No. What is it? Work. He stayed. For 3 hours, we removed the damaged rail, fitted new wood, and cleaned the drawer. He did not talk much. Neither did I. At the end, the drawer closed. The crack remained visible. I chose not to cover it. Some repairs should show where the break happened. 1 year after the dinner, Evelyn called another estate meeting. This time, we did not meet at Caroline's house. We met at Bennett Packaging. The conference room overlooked the production floor. Through the glass, we could see machines moving, pallets being wrapped, and employees crossing between stations. Grandpa had preferred meetings there because, as he often said, numbers behaved better when they could hear the work. There were no place cards, no wine, no asset names. Each person received a folder containing the final first-year accounting. The estate's gross value had been $14.2 million. After taxes, debt, administration, the harbor loss, property reserves, and charitable commitments, the protected estate value was lower. But the company had grown. Employee turnover had fallen after the profit-sharing plan expanded. The vineyard had entered a long-term operating agreement with a local agricultural cooperative. The downtown building had been renovated without displacing tenants. The lake house had been used by 9 family groups, including Caroline, who spent 2 weekends repairing the dock instead of calling a realtor. Miguel had placed the green coop in the Technical Foundation's workshop and used it to teach 14 students. The estate was not being consumed. It was working. That was Grandpa's real design. Evelyn reviewed the individual trusts. My father's suspension ended. He would receive quarterly distributions with financial oversight. Caroline's trust was active. Martin's remained restricted until the company settlement was paid. Derek had enrolled in a certified automotive restoration program, which meant the education trust would cover tuition and tools. He did not attend the meeting, but Miguel had sent a note saying Derek showed up on time and listened more than he talked. For Derek, that qualified as major growth. Olivia's housing trust had helped refinance a high-interest loan after she completed financial counseling. She had stopped asking about the jewelry. Then Evelyn reviewed my role. The independent board had voted to retain me as chair for another 3-year term. I had refused additional compensation beyond the standard meeting fee. Martin had called that performance. Carla, the employee representative, called it useful. Grandpa's company shares remained inside the stewardship trust. No family member owned them directly. The employees received a growing profit interest. The family trusts received part of the remaining distributions. The company retained enough capital to survive problems without borrowing from anyone's inheritance. It was less exciting than selling everything. It was also how legacies survived. At the end of the meeting, Evelyn placed the first dollar in a clear display case. A small plaque beneath it read, "The first dollar belongs to the work that earned it." Dad had suggested the wording. I looked at him across the table. He did not smile. He simply nodded. After the meeting, employees gathered in the break room for the foundation scholarship announcement. 5 children of workers received education grants. Grandpa had started with 1 scholarship each year. The trust now supported 5. A young woman named Rosa stood beside her mother, who had worked on the packing line for 19 years. Rosa planned to study mechanical engineering. She thanked the company. Then she thanked Grandpa, even though she had met him only twice. "Mr. Bennett told my mother the company should create more futures than it uses," she said. I had never heard that sentence. It sounded like him after our argument. Unpleasant and correct. My father stood beside me during the applause. "Did you help him write that?" he asked. "No." He looked surprised, then ashamed of being surprised. "I am still learning what was his and what I blamed on you. That may take time." Yes. We walked through the production floor. Employees greeted me. Some called me Maya. Some called me Ms. Bennett. No one called me owner. I liked that. Ownership had caused enough confusion. Outside, Dad stopped near Grandpa's old parking space. Would he be happy? He asked. With the numbers? With us. I looked through the glass at Olivia speaking with Evelyn. Caroline was laughing with Carla. Martin stood alone near the hall, waiting for his attorney, but he had attended. Dad was beside me. Derek was at school. I think he would say happiness is not the same as completion. Dad smiled slightly. That sounds like him. It does. He would still complain. Definitely. Dad placed his hands in his pockets. Your trust distribution begins this month. I know. What will you do with it? I looked at him. Are you asking because you care, or because you want to measure? He accepted the question without anger. Care. I am restoring the farmhouse barn. For what? An archive and training center, company history downstairs, financial literacy workshops upstairs. He thought about it. Could I help? With the building? With the workshops. My first instinct was no. Dad had made a career out of appearing confident around money. But he had also spent a year facing what bad assumptions cost. What would you teach? He looked toward Grandpa's old parking space. How not to borrow against money you do not own. I laughed. He did too. People may listen, I said. I have evidence. He began volunteering at the workshops 3 months later. At first, he spoke like a lecturer. No one asked questions. Then he changed. He told the harbor story without names. He explained how inheritance expectations had made a risky deal feel safe. He admitted that being older did not make him more careful. People listened. The first time I heard him say, I ignored the person who understood the numbers because she was my daughter, I had to leave the room. Not because I was angry. Because he had finally said the sentence without requiring me to drag it from him. Caroline became the unofficial manager of the lake house calendar. She created strict rules, then broke them for every grandchild. She stopped talking about selling. One autumn afternoon, she asked me to visit. The dock had been repaired. Grandpa's old fishing chair sat near the water. Caroline handed me coffee. I hated you that night, she said. I know. I thought Dad had trusted you because you were better at making him feel guilty. That is an interesting theory. It was easier than believing you stayed when I did not. I looked across the lake. You visited when you could. No, I visited when it was convenient. The honesty surprised me. She continued, I kept saying I created the family memories because I was afraid everyone would notice I had stopped showing up for them. You can create new ones. That sounds annoyingly reasonable. Grandpa said I was unpleasant. He was right. We smiled. She never became easy. Neither did I. But our conversations became honest enough to survive disagreement. Martin was different. He repaid the harbor loss over 3 years by surrendering part of his trust distributions, selling a vacation property, and working under a settlement agreement. He never returned to executive management. The company offered him a technical advisory role because he knew equipment better than anyone in the family. For 6 months, he refused. Then one machine failed during a major order. Martin came in at midnight and worked beside the maintenance team until sunrise. He accepted the advisory role the following week. No private office, no company vehicle, no authority over money. He hated the restrictions. He respected the work. Sometimes that is the closest a person comes to repentance before they find the word. Derek completed his first year of restoration school. He sent me a photograph of a repaired engine. No caption. I replied, "Looks real." He wrote back, "It is." That was our entire conversation. It was enough. Olivia and I rebuilt our relationship through Grandma's letters. The farmhouse library contained boxes of them. Some were romantic, some were angry, some were grocery lists written on the backs of anniversary cards. They showed a marriage more complicated than the family stories. Grandma loved Grandpa. She also threatened to leave him twice when he worked too much. Grandpa apologized badly. Grandma forgave slowly. They were not symbols. They were people. One letter mentioned the emerald brooch. Grandma wrote that it was too beautiful to spend its life in a safe. The museum display opened the following spring. Olivia stood beside me. She really did want this, she said. Yes. I thought the estate was taking her things away from us. It gave people a chance to see them. She nodded. Then she touched my silver locket. Still cheap. Still jealous. A little. We laughed. The farmhouse became mine legally 6 months after the first meeting. The deed arrived in a plain envelope. No music. No dramatic speech. Just paper. I walked through every room alone. The house was worth more than anything I had ever owned. But value was not what I felt. I felt responsibility. The roof needed work. The plumbing was old. The archive required climate control. The garden had become wild. Memory required maintenance. Grandpa had written that. Now I understood the cost. I used part of my trust distribution to repair the house. I accepted the estate's repayment for his care, but placed half into the employee emergency fund. Not because I wanted to be noble. Because some of Grandpa's caregivers had missed work at their own jobs to help him. Care has hidden costs. I no longer believed silence made a gift purer. I documented the donation. I told the board. I stopped confusing secrecy with humility. 2 years after the dinner, our family gathered at the farmhouse for Grandpa's birthday. It was the first time everyone had been there together since his death. Even Derek came. I made lemon pie. Caroline brought food. Dad set up chairs. Olivia displayed copies of Grandma's letters. Martin arrived late and repaired a loose porch step without being asked. No one divided anything. After dinner, Evelyn brought out a final sealed note. We all froze. She smiled. This is not another will. Derek said, that is exactly what someone with another will would say. Even Martin laughed. The note was a birthday letter Grandpa had written years earlier and never sent. Evelyn had found it among the archive papers. Dad read it aloud. Grandpa wrote about the first year of Bennett Packaging. He had 6 employees, 1 machine, no reliable heat, and more debt than sense. He believed success would make the family safe. Instead, every success created a new thing to protect. the company, the properties, the reputation, the inheritance. He wrote that he sometimes wondered whether he had built a shelter or a wall. The last paragraph was simple. If I leave you anything worth having, it will not be money. It will be the ability to sit at one table without deciding what the other person is worth. Dad stopped reading. No one moved for a moment. Then Derek looked at the table. There are no place cards. Caroline said, "We noticed." "I am just confirming." I looked at my family. The estate had not repaired us. Money cannot do that. The trust created consequences. The audit created facts. The letters created context. But repair came through smaller choices. Returning a stolen dollar. Admitting a hidden deal. Paying back money. Showing up for work. Asking before taking. Listening after the answer became uncomfortable. The $14 million estate did not make any of us rich overnight. That disappointed several people. It gave employees stability, students education, tenants protection, the company time, the family boundaries, and me, a farmhouse full of cracks I chose not to hide. People later asked whether I felt victorious when Evelyn read the line my family skipped. For 1 second, yes. I would be lying if I denied it. They had placed a blank card in front of me. Then the will placed me at the center of the trust. The reversal felt powerful, but victory lasted seconds. Responsibility lasted years. The real lesson was not that greedy relatives lose and the quiet granddaughter wins. Life is rarely that clean. My family was greedy. They were also grieving. They were selfish. They were also afraid. I was overlooked. I was also sometimes proud of being the only competent person in the room. Grandpa protected the estate. He also created some of the dependents he later tried to correct. Every person in that story was more than the worst thing they did at dinner. But being complicated does not remove accountability. Love does not make unauthorized access acceptable. Grief does not make property yours. Family does not turn silence into consent. And good intentions do not clean money after it moves through a hidden account. Grandpa's greatest gift was not leaving me the farmhouse. It was leaving instructions strong enough to hold when emotions failed. He understood something my family had forgotten. A legacy is not what people receive when you die. It is the behavior your life continues to demand after you are gone. The place cards from that first dinner are stored in the farmhouse archive. All of them. The lake house, the building, the cars, the jewelry, the company, even mine, the blank one. Visitors sometimes ask why I kept it. I tell them it is the most important item in the collection. Not because it proves my family excluded me, because it reminds me what happens when people assign value before they know the whole story. At the bottom of the display case, beneath the blank card, is the line from Article 9. All distributions are subject to the conditions described below. 7 simple words. My family saw the money and stopped reading. Grandpa knew they would. Now, whenever someone enters the archive, they have to walk past that sentence first, read the conditions, ask who carries the responsibility, look beyond the number, and never divide a person's life at dinner before the truth reaches the table.